Blip here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the changes to Frost Mage in the Shadowlands beta. Now, I've already made a video on this before, just like my Fire Mage video, but we're going to be covering it here again because I feel like I could do a better job, and there have been quite a few changes to Mage since the initial videos I made, so it's a way to keep it updated and to make them better. So with that out of the way, let's get straight into it, shall we? So Arcane Explosion and Fire Blast have been made baseline. Fire Blast does slightly more damage than a Ice Lance instant cast, so take that as you will. Arcane Explosion, however, does a fair amount of damage, and there will definitely be times you use this in AoE scenarios. It does less damage than one Blizzard cast, like over its whole duration, but it still does enough damage that you can spam it when you're trying to finish off low HP mobs, for example, or maybe you just use it in your rotation in general, who knows. Next we have Arcane Intellect. Arcane Intellect was nerfed by 5%, so it's now 5% intellect given to everyone instead of 10%, but battle scrolls are being removed, so this buff is now still insanely valuable. If anything, it's essentially 2% more effective than it was before, because without battle scrolls you have to have a mage for the 5% buff, whereas the battle scrolls were 7%, so yep, I think it doesn't really matter this change that much. You're still going to bring a mage to all of your raids anyway, because that's just how essential this buff is. The next change we have is Mirror Images. It's been made baseline and been turned into a defensive. So now whenever I summon these images, I'm going to take 20% less damage until these images disappear, and they're going to always cast Frostbolt on my target. This makes it so that it's a pretty good tool for kiting things, since they'll cast Frostbolts on your enemies and you can run away. And also, my threat is redirected to them until they die. So if I have aggro on a few mobs, I can just spawn my Mirror Images and create some distance while they're attacking the Mirror Images. And it's a really useful tool. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've made use of this in the beta already. It's probably one of the better tools we've received. Now, we have these two abilities here, the Door of Shadows and Mirror of Torment, but these are Covenant abilities, and I've already made a video on the Covenants, so you should go and check that out. I'll put a link in the description, but I won't be covering them here. Now, for some reason, Alter Time is put in the Frost Mage specifics row, but it doesn't make sense because all mage specs have access to Alter Time. Arcane Mage has Alter Time, but they get access to it straight away, whereas Frost and Fire have to level up to unlock it, so it's really weird. Either way, it's a general spell that everyone has access to. It's a 1 minute cooldown. It works exactly like it did in Warlords of Draenor, so I'm going to mark a spot, and then I'm going to go back in time after 10 seconds to where I was, with the same health and the same position. So I'll show you here now. I'm going to mark a location. It's really hard to see the mirror image clone, but you can see it there. Now I could either right click this buff off and it would just keep me here with the same HP I have now, or I can either expire or reactivate it again and it will teleport me back here with the HP and the position I had when I originally cast it. So keep in mind that if you're on low HP when you use this, you will be on low HP when you reactivate it, even if you get healed up to full. So make sure you're using this really carefully and you're thinking ahead of how you're using this. This is why Alter Time is a really cool talent, because it requires you to use your mind and think ahead quite a lot. So yeah, I'm really happy with this talent. Sorry, this ability. Now other than that, Frost Mage hasn't really received much in terms of changes. Everything is pretty much the same. I'm pretty sure they see Frost Mage as like the golden spec for some reason. It definitely has its problems. But there is one change that was pretty impactful that was made to the Winter's Chill buff. Now, when I press Flurry here, I'm going to apply 2 stacks of Winter's Chill to the target for 6 seconds, and then I can cast 2 Ice Lances, for example, to shatter those Winter's Chill. Now, the thing is with this buff is that it keeps reapplying like it normally does, and then it finishes off by leaving 2 stacks. If I try and shatter this Frostbolt here, for example, you'll see the Frostbolt was shattered, and then the buff was reapplied, and now I can just use 2 Ice Lances. So this was a really nice change, simply because it means you get to use your Ice Lances more, and in a way you can kind of like, you know, play around this a bit more than you could before, because you don't have to use it instantly, and it means if I have to move, I can just, you know, move while casting 2 Ice Lances here. And yeah, it's pretty nice. It's basically the equivalent of 2 Fingers of Frost. And I'll show you how this functions with the Glacial Spike talent now, which works exactly the same as it has always worked. So Glacial Spike now is still the same, but I'll show you here quickly. But now I don't need to worry about casting Glacial Spike here. I don't need to shatter it with the Frostbolt because I have all this time. So what I can do is I can just shatter, whoops, I didn't mean to do that at all. I can just shatter that Frostbolt, shatter this Ice Lance, and then use my Glacial Spike. Which gives you a lot more freedom. You're in no rush to use your Glacial Spikes now. You don't always have to line stuff up, and it means you can efficiently use your Flurry procs a bit more. So yeah, that was for that change. Again, it's a really impactful change, and I'm sure a lot of Frost Mages are happy about this. Right, let's get straight into the talents then, since nothing else has really changed here. So on the first row, nothing has changed for us. Ice Nova is a spell that I personally wish they would change, personally, because it's really useless on single target in raids, for example, because this mob won't get rooted and it just does 2.4k damage. When you compare that to a permanent 5% increased damage done, or this Lonely Winter, which gives you loads of damage increase at the sacrifice of your pet, this doesn't even compare. If this like applied Winter's Chill to your target or something, it would be way more better. But that's just my opinion. Next we have this row here, the 25 row. Nothing has changed here apart from a nerf to Shimmer that got a 5-second time increase, so if there's a situation where you really want to use more blinks, then you'll probably play with Ice Flows. I mean, Ice Flows is a really good talent, and a lot of mages do play with this already, so yeah, not really much changing here. The 30 row now, this is quite a big change, so Incantus Flow is the same. We have a new talent called Focus Magic. Now, it's hard to test this in this situation here where I don't have anyone to show you. So I'm going to play you a clip of a Fire Mage video I had of using it. And basically how this buff works is you're going to buff a target, and they're going to be able to have a 5% increased crit chance on their spells. So this doesn't work for Demon Hunters, for example, it only works for casters. Now, whenever they crit, your crit is increased by 5% for 10 seconds. But you can only put this on one target as well, keep that in mind. Now what it doesn't say in the tooltip is that whenever you get this buff, you gain 1 stack of intellect, sorry, 1% of intellect stacking up to 8 times. It can't go higher than 8, and now this is really good for Frost Mage, right? Because if you have 2 Frost Mages in a raid group, or a dungeon group, or whatever content you're doing, you can both buff each other, right? And because Frost Mage is already a class that crits fairly often, you're going to have 100% uptime on this buff, and you're also both going to get 10% crit chance, which is going to help you reach your shatter cap of 33% a lot earlier on. So this Focus Magic is actually going to be the best talent if you pair it up with another mage, like I'm 100% certain of that. So make sure you have a mage buddy in your raid. If you don't, I feel sorry for you, and you'll most likely be playing with the new Rune of Power. Now, Rune of Power got changed up in a fairly big way. So now it doesn't have 2 charges anymore, it only has 1 charge, but now it lasts for 15 seconds, and the cooldown rate of it is still the same. So this essentially means that you're already gaining more value from this than before, because you're getting 15 seconds of Rune of Power and the recharge rate is the same. And what's also really big about this change is that now whenever you cast your major cooldown, you're also spawning a Rune of Power underneath you. So this means you're basically getting way more uses of Rune of Power and it lasts for longer, so this talent just skyrocketed in performance, and for Frost Mage, if you're not playing Focus Magic, you're most likely playing Rune of Power. That's just how impactful this change is at the moment. But also, one change I forgot to mention earlier on is there was a global cooldown reduction phase they did earlier in a beta this week, and now Icy Veins is no longer on the global cooldown, so I'll just show you this quickly. See, I can just start casting instantly, and as you can see here, although it's a bit scuffed, there's a Rune of Power underneath me when I press my Icy Veins. So yeah, it's some pretty cool changes we've received in general, quality of life wise, and this change just makes Frost like really good. It means in your opener, you know, when you normally have to cast, if you were playing with Rune of Power before, you would have to cast your Icy Veins, Frozen Orb, and then Rune of Power, and then you would have to do your whole rotation like that. But now you can just Icy Veins and Rune of Power, you can Icy Veins and Frozen Orb at the same time, meaning you just get your rotation started a lot faster than before. So yeah, this is a really awesome change. Nothing has changed on the 35 row, nothing has changed on the 40 row, nothing has changed on the 45 row, and nothing has changed on the 50 row. Everything is the same for Mage pretty much, other than the stuff I mentioned earlier. But yeah, so really minor changes, but really impactful changes, if you know what I mean. Now, there is a bug with Rune of Power at the moment, so I'm just going to wait for my cooldowns to come up quickly. Alright, so now I have my Icy Veins on cooldown, I'll show you. So now, whenever I cast Icy Veins, I'm going to spawn a Rune of Power underneath me, and this, as you can see in the top left here, it's lasting for 15 seconds. Now when I spawn another Rune of Power, now this doesn't work, right? I only get one buff, but the problem here is that as soon as this first Rune of Power expires, I lose the Rune of Power buff, and I still have one up, you see? The only way I get this back is by blinking into it, or coming back into it, and now I have the buff again, see? Although it didn't last very long because it despawned. But yeah, this is a really annoying bug because it means you have to be really precise with your Rune of Powers, and if you accidentally overlap them by even a millisecond, you're wasting a lot of damage, so be very wary of that. Now, what do I think of the current state of Frost Mage? I personally think it's in a decent spot right now. Now, don't get me wrong, there still are some fundamental problems with Frost Mage, such as there being times where you waste Fingers of Frost charges because you put a Winter's Chill on the target with your Brain Freeze, and then you got a proc, so there's no way you can do anything about that. Now, to address something like that, Blizzard could make it so that whenever you use Fingers of Frost on a target affected by Winter's Chill, it doesn't consume your Fingers of Frost. That would make it completely fine, and there would still be times I think you would get too many procs and you would waste some, but at least this way you're not just wasting them and you know you can't do anything about it. Otherwise, there is only really one build viable for Frost Mage right now in PvE, which is a Thermal Void Ice Lance build, but it's a really fun build, so I think for the first patch of this expansion, Frost Mage is going to be pretty enjoyable to play for a lot of people, including myself. However, I'm one of the people that did like Glacial Spike. The only reason I don't like Glacial Spike is because of how awfully designed it is when it comes to Brain Freeze procs, because you could be there for ages trying to get a Brain Freeze proc for your Glacial Spike and you don't get one, which makes it really inconsistent and frustrating to play. But if they were to address that issue, I think Glacial Spike would be my most favourite talent for Mage, but we did play with it for a whole expansion pretty much, so I think going back to an Ice Lancer-centric build is probably for the best for a lot of people. I'm really happy about Focus Magic, it looks really good, and at first I was really skeptical about it. I honestly didn't want to play Focus Magic at all, but now it's looking like a really good option, and the fact that you can just give it to another mage and you both benefit from the buff is insane. So you're essentially getting 10% crit, and that means we can actually hit our crit cap early on, although it is thanks to a talent, and you most likely will still try and get your crit cap so you can play Rune of Power instead, because Rune of Power gives you 40% spell damage for a long time and it's really good. But otherwise you'll be playing Focus Magic for the most part, and I think it's quite cool. I think we're going to have a good time in this expansion, to be honest with you, at least the start of it. But otherwise, that's all for this video. Frost Mage is one of the classes that are receiving the least changes, so there's not really too much to cover. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the video. If you liked it, please let me know in the comments. If you have any suggestions or feedback to make these videos better, please let me know, I'd love to hear. And yeah, consider subscribing. I mean, I'm going to be releasing some new series soon where you'll be able to see different legendary combos and some crazy funky builds, which is really fun in my opinion. And yeah, I hope you enjoy and continue to stick around. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. See you later.